So I like to say that I married into Texas. Because my wife is from San Antonio. Well, actually a little town south of San Antonio, Hondo, Texas. Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And she is by far the woman. So I'm a kid that grew up in South Central LA. In case you can't tell, I love the Dodgers. But I grew up in South Central. Giants. That's well, Braves are all right. If you haven't, so I grew up in the city and never knew much about hunting or fishing. But Vanessa grew up in Hondo, Texas. If you've never been to Texas, to Hondo, Texas, there's a sign that says, "This is God's country. Please don't drive through it like hell." Her father and Vanessa taught me how to hunt and fish, and man, there's nothing like that feeling of a fish on the line. I know that Rich shares that passion with me, but I couldn't help myself but to share a quote by one of your very own, who's often doing great stuff. He's currently the Secretary of HUD. That's Julian Castro. Here, one of the first Latino mayors in the city of San Antonio. He had this to say about some of his work. "I couldn't help but think back to my classmates at Thomas Jefferson High School in San Antonio. They had the same talent, the same brains, the same dreams as the folks we sat with at Stanford and Harvard. I realized the difference wasn't intelligence or drive. The difference was opportunity. I've always said that there's nothing as powerful as an opportunity. And the more I grow up in this field of connecting people and nature, and the more I realize the hardships of communities that are struggling day in and day out with police officers that are sworn to protect them but instead shoot them, that a city government that is meant to serve but yet comes short. It is a question about equity. It is a question about social justice. It is a question about what role we play connecting all children to nature in the formula for a positive impact in families. And we all play a role in that. And I want to thank you for being here today, for giving one of the precious commodities in life, and that's time. Time away from your parents, time away from your family, time away from the work that you could be doing today, to come and listen to this esteemed panel that also plays a vital role in making that formula work. When Rich and I first met, I was brought to that meeting by Martin Blanc, one of my longtime mentors. And in that meeting, I was feeling pretty cocky. I was a kid from South Central LA and hadn't read the book, but was hearing a lot of stuff about it. I was a bald-headed kid, poster kid. And Rich brought us to the table. He said, "When I go around the country and I look out into the crowd, it's not young, it's not diverse. Why is that?" I said, "Rich, you haven't given it to us now. You haven't built the place for us to feel ownership of this movement." And I'm happy to say that through the Natural Leaders Network, you have a diverse generation of nature champions that are going to carry the legacy forward. The legacy that you built. The legacy that you built that not only identifies nature as a critical part of communities, but identifies the right to vote. When Vietnam soldiers were losing their lives across the country, across the sea, they didn't have the right to vote until you demanded it. And when 50 years ago, a group of brave people marched from Selma to Montgomery. They demanded the right to vote and social justice. That's your generation and that's your legacy. I'm happy to say that it's carrying forward. So without further ado, we'll step into the conversation of Funder's perspective on connecting children to nature. I'll introduce our esteemed panel, and they'll each have a couple minutes to talk more in depth about their work. But if you have any questions that you want to ask of the panel, we're not going to have time for questions during this panel, but I do encourage you to use hashtag CNNC2015 to ask those questions of the panel. And we will do our best to recollect those questions and frame them out later on via Twitter or social media to answer those questions. So again, social media is an amplifier for your voice. I encourage you all to use it. Kim Moore is the Executive Director of Foundation for Youth Investments. As Executive Director, Kim oversees the Foundation for Youth Investments, strategic directions, grant-making programs, and operations. She brings over 20 years of experience as a management executive with expertise in strategic planning, community engagement, and developing programs that connect young people to the outdoors. Let me tell you something about Kim. If there's anything, any person that permeates empowerment for youth outdoors, it's Kim. And thank you so much for being here, Kim. Really appreciate it. Laura Turner Seidel with Turner Foundation and the Captain Planet endeavors. I was sharing a story with Laura that when I'm a native Spanish speaker, when I was learning to speak English, Captain Planet was one of my first memories. So you have a planeteer here, Laura. Oh, yeah. All right. Ellen Braff-Fajardo is a program officer with the W.K. Kellogg Foundation. If there's one thing you need to know about Ellen, it is that she is about equity. And if there's one thing that the Kellogg Foundation has a champion in their programming, is the equity piece, which we'll hear much more about here. Try to pry out personal things from her when we were conversating, but it always came back to equity. Her career spans an immense resume that is impressive to anyone, and as much an advocate that can be out there for empowering and giving the rights what rights are deserved. Thank you. Next to her is Talby Walters. Can't tell you enough about Talby. To do that, we have to go out to the bar. But on any given weekend, you can find Talby riding her bike. Man, she can kick anybody's butt. Talby is the Senior Vice President of Corporate Innovation. She is the Community Affairs Program Manager for REI. She is a fierce advocate for conservation, outdoor recreation, and empowering communities to connect people to the outdoors. Can't say enough about her. You sit down with her and you'll get stories that go from Anchorage to Alaska to DC to down south. And there's ever someone that can keep up with her passion. It's only, I don't know who, but we're looking forward to meeting that person. Tom Norquist is the Senior Vice President of Corporate Innovation for Playport. Tom is not only a businessman and inventor and creator of play, which is just the most fabulous thing out there. Fran Manella's here with us, the president of the Play Coalition at Clemson University. That's where I got to meet Tom for the first time. The first thing Tom comes up to me about you gotta go and sit on it. Sip when it goes 15 degrees in my backyard. But to try to keep up with Tom is to try to run yourself out of life. There's no one more passionate, more eager to get out there and do than Tom. So thank you, Tom, for being here. Angie and Shen from the, let me read the official bio. The Blue Sky Funders Forum. Angie is the director of the Blue Sky Funders Forum, a collaborative of funders who support environmental education to advance conservation, education, and civic engagement in healthy communities. Now, don't hold it against her that she's a Giants fan. And that's why she's at the end. But Andrew and I got to meet down in Florida at the Funders for Education conference, and that was the first time I ever met Angie in person. I've heard her name many times before. There's a advocate out there for environmental education, bridging those gaps with conservation and things that matter in the community on a day-to-day basis. It's Angie. So I definitely encourage you to find the time to get in touch with her to do that. The work that we're doing with the Blue Sky Funders Forum is really innovative and very insightful. So with that further ado, please help me in welcoming the panel. And I'll turn it over to him. Yeah, sorry. And so we're going to start off with this question in addressing what are the primary outcomes you seek in your funding strategies that include connecting children, families to nature?
Thank you so much, Juan. Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming in from the outdoors to listen to us this afternoon. As Juan said, my name is Kim Moore-Bailey, and I'm the Executive Director with the Foundation for Youth Investment. I've been there for a little over a year, and honestly, the question that Juan asked for me is a very simple one. We are a grant maker, and we are committed to supporting organizations in Northern California that connect youth to nature. So what does that mean and what does that look like? Through our strategic planning process, while we all celebrated the idea of connecting youth to nature, we also said we wanted to make sure that our grantees were really addressing a larger impact. And so for us, we are also looking for evidence of health and wellness outcomes and supporting that next generation of environmental stewards. So through our grant making process, we engage with our grantees to make sure that those particular outcomes are a part of their work and their vision. We've also been taking a really active voice in the conversation around cultural relevancy and cultural competency. So really asking our grantees, does your organization reflect the communities in which you're serving? And that could be through curriculum, through staffing, through their board makeup. And I'll say that if the answer to that is no, or we're working on it, or we're trying, or we really want to, but we're really not sure how, that's not a no. But if you become a grantee with the Foundation for Youth Investment, you're also committing to being a part of a cohort. And through that work throughout the year, we will work with you on other capacity building components, but we're also going to support you in building your cultural competency as an organization and give you the tools to help you do that. Because where we start is, our mission is to really focus on eliminating those barriers that are preventing underserved and underrepresented youth from connecting to nature. So the organizations that we support start with those communities, we start with those populations, and from there we just help to raise all boats.
So I guess I would like to start by just saying that the Turner Foundation has funded the Children's in Nature Network, and it was great to get have an up-to-date conversation with Margaret Lamar last night to find out how much our grant has been leveraged. And I'm just so proud of what this organization has been able to do with not much funding, really. I think it's I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, about $1 million a year that they're spending. And when I heard in a very short amount of time, all the amazing research on public health as it relates to children and nature that's being unlocked from these institutions, it's been hoarded. And I tell you, that's what is really going to move the needle on children and nature and the issues that surround it, is if we use the health and wellness, both mental health and physical health, research, the data that exists. And then the fact that CNN is going to be the repository for this information, the go-to for all of us in this room and beyond, and the fact that they are going to use this information to educate legislators. And I know that you are experiencing the same thing that I am, that there is a real partisan issue, and children and nature should not be a partisan issue. Environmental issues should not be a partisan issue. But if you take a close look at how your legislators are voting on things that affect our children's health, their quality of life, and their future, you'll see, just a huge gap, and it's very unfortunate. But I think when you start talking about things in a different way and you focus it on health, it's going to change the way that we do business in this country, and I really think it's going to affect policy, and it already has. It already is. But I also think that that the community needs to be educating legislators, holding them accountable. The fact that mayors now with urban the National League of Cities is in 35 states. They're going to be educating mayors, Atlanta's mayor, Kasim Reed included, and that city councils are going to be educated. I really am very hopeful for the future. And I just want to touch on Captain Planet Foundation because it's something that my dad started back in 1990. Captain Planet and the Planeteers was a cartoon series that was seen in 100 countries in 23 different languages, 80 million youth in this country, including Juan, and Colin O'Mara, who runs the National Wildlife Federation, and Ian Summeralder, who's that cute vampire. We're all Planeteers growing up, and it really has changed the way that millennials think about conservation and environmental issues, which I'm glad to say. But my dad also wanted to start a foundation. So what kids saw on television on Saturday morning cartoons about environmental issues could have hands-on environmental stewardship projects in their schools, in their communities, to kind of engage them at a different level. And when kids realize that they can make a difference on real world issues in their communities, it really empowers them and excites them. And they want to do more of that. So it's really been important, the work of the Captain Planet Foundation over the past 24 years. We've funded directly 1.2 million children, and impacted over 10 million children directly through our funding and support of hands-on environmental projects that address water issues, soil, air quality. There's habitat and endangered species, renewable energy projects. It really runs the gamut. And I'm just glad to be here and to be able to answer the rest of the questions that come my way.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm really so impressed by the energy in the room and everything I've heard so far. I'm with the W.K. Kellogg Foundation. I've been with the foundation for 2 years. I'm on the National Healthy Kids team. The Kellogg Foundation is dedicated to the mission of ensuring that all children have access to the opportunities that they need to thrive. Our focus is on vulnerable children and vulnerable places. Besides the national work, we do work in place in New Mexico, in Mississippi, in Michigan, and New Orleans. As a program officer in Healthy Kids, my work is really around healthy community. And a particular focus is healthy schools, healthy neighborhoods, and sort of engaged, empowered community and community voice. And all of the work at the Kellogg Foundation, as Juan mentioned, is through the lens of racial equity. And it's really that equity lens that is what inspired me to leave California and move to Battle Creek, Michigan, to work for the Kellogg Foundation. In terms of the question about, what outcomes we're looking for in the work connecting kids to nature, I mean, for me as a national program officer, my work is all about policy and systems change. I think you'll hear it from the other funders on the panel. I mean, no foundation, no matter how large, and Kellogg is certainly a very large foundation, has enough funding to be able to do everything that is out there and is a really good idea. We have to prioritize, and for our national work, it really is about policy and systems change. And an example of that work is actually being highlighted in a couple of places during this conference, and it's the Space to Grow work in Chicago about greening of schoolyards. And what makes that particular project different than the many wonderful greening of schoolyard projects around the country is that in the case of Space to Grow, and I use this just as an example, the applicant organizations, Open Lands and Healthy Schools Campaign came to me and said, look, all we need is a little bit of funding in order to facilitate a conversation between several, public agencies about greening these schoolyards. And through our modest sort of facilitation grant, they were able to leverage $51 million in public funds to green schoolyards in Chicago. And one really creative aspect of that was using stormwater management funding to help. And so it's that kind of innovation, thinking sort of outside the box about what are possible public streams of dollars that in Chicago and literally dozens of schoolyards that will be greened through this project have really been the recipient of that creativity, and those lessons learned will be shared across the country. And so, again, I sort of warned one that one of the problems with having a funders panel is that now we're all, you know who we are. And of course, it's a pleasure. I mean, we are so privileged to be in this position as funders. But I really, in general, encourage folks to look at any funder's website, really get a sense of what they fund, and see whether or not realistically what you hope to have funded is a good match. Because there are so many more worthy projects than, as I mentioned, any of us could possibly fund. It is really a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. I have to agree. It's just so exciting to be surrounded by so many inspirational people talking about the power of play. Coming from REI, it's what we talk about and try to do every day. We love to get outside and play, and we know firsthand the importance of having quality gear. There's nothing worse than wet feet on that hike, right? And so we really work hard to inspire, educate, and outfit for a lifetime of adventure and stewardship. As a company, we are very invested in stewardship. As you can see, it's part of our mission statement now. And so when we think about organizations that we want to support and partner with, we really look for organizations that are working to increase infrastructure. That is not the sexiest word. So when I say infrastructure, I'm talking about those awesome trailheads and campgrounds and the facilities that we need to get outside and play. But also really working to increase that access and the ability for those inspirational outdoor experiences as well. I often joke that outdoor recreation is the gateway drug to conservation. I think, it's through those firsthand moments. I think everybody probably in this room can look back and remember that moment that they had outside. I see some of you yesterday had the lucky opportunity to tag a monarch butterfly and let that go. I can imagine for a child that would be a very life-changing moment. And so we're really interested in helping to facilitate not only healthy places for people to play, but also healthy people. We do that through a hyper-localized giving program. Some of you might have heard about our store giving. We have 140 stores nationwide in 33 states. And so each of those stores does a handful of local grants to the organizations that make those communities healthy places to play. And we do that on behalf of our members. As I'm sure most of you know, REI is the largest consumer co-op in the country. If you're not a member, please come talk to me. And so as part of the co-op, we support these nonprofits in the best interest of our members so that when you come to REI to buy those new fancy hiking boots, you do have a place to go and play. We also have a national giving program, and that's actually my area of expertise. And through that program, we've had the opportunity to fund Juan and the Natural Leaders Network. We've really started to kind of focus in the children in nature space on the age group that's sort of mid-high school to mid-20s. And we've really done a lot of research and decided that that is an age range where we think we can have the most impact. There's a lot of groups out there doing great work in the K through 12 age range, and we really feel that we have an opportunity as a lot of those individuals graduate from high school. They might not be going into organized sports in school, and they're kind of trying to find that next healthy lifestyle, if it's yoga or bicycling. Anybody wants to go for a ride, I'm an avid cyclist now. And so we're there to help educate them, because sometimes it's not only not having the means to buy the outdoor gear, it's also not having the skills to get out there and go on your first hiking trip. And so REI offers a lot of support in that area, and we also support groups that help get people outside.
Wow, what a group. So I'm Tom, and I'm the guy, and they put me up here to balance out all these beautiful ladies. And having worked at Playcore, worked with a great team at Playcore. I'm so grateful for Lisa Moore and Lindsay getting together with Sarah and really stepping up our commitment to Children Nature Network. So it's an honor to be here. And we're interested in investing in partnerships. That is really what we're about. And yeah, we make stuff. Yes, zip lines and crazy swings where you can swing with your kid or whatever, right? We make stuff, right? Recreation and all that, but we actually spend a couple $1 million a year in outreach and research. And Lisa Moore heads that area up. And just to give you an example of some of the investments we've made over the years and how that connects children and natures. Robin Moore and Milda Costco, many of you probably know Robin and Milda with the Natural Learning Initiative, have helped us over the years create a nature grounds program to how to not have a playground look like a piece of metal in a kitty litter box, but really have it. Seriously, I mean, it's what the students, they looked at me and they said, "You're that guy that makes those kitty litter boxes." I said, no. How to naturefy and make beautiful natural play environments. Also, working with Robin and Nilda, they helped us with American Trails to put some play elements out on the trails to get kids to come out onto the trails. And that was a major investment. It took us a year of research to meet with the trails people and have them help us do that. And then working with Keith Christensen at Utah State University, Persons with Disabilities Center, on how to work on inclusion. So it's equitable for everyone, and how you get out and do that. And then Dr. Stuart Brown with the National Institute for Play, the science behind why we do all of this. When you're out in nature, you're creating BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, and neurogenesis is taking place, and you're all getting smarter because of it. And it's like, really, when society understands that, why are we not funded more? Because it's just crazy. So we're here to listen, to learn, and to seek out new partnerships so that we can continue to grow our business. And one of the things that we're really, really excited about was the recent acquisition of Big Toys. Rusty and some others here, cut their teeth in the natural play with Big Toys. Big Toys is our new area where we're really, really emphasizing natural play. And so it's really, really exciting for us to make an investment in this field. So that's kind of why we're here, and we thank each and every one of you for the opportunity. And hopefully we'll meet some good folks to partner with.
So I'm Angie, and I'm the director of the Blue Sky Funders Farm, which was just launched in August of last year by the Pisces Foundation, and my colleague Ida is sitting right there. And the reason that Pisces started Blue Sky was that when it entered the funding field with an interest in connecting people to nature and environmental education, it found that there weren't that many other funders that were standing up and raising their hands and saying that they supported that. And so for Blue Sky, I think the single outcome that we're really looking for is something like this. So this is success for us to see funders who are interested in this work even in the same place. A lot of the funders that focus on children in nature or environmental education tend to be very place-based, isolated within specific cities, regions, or states, and there are very few that are having this conversation nationally. There aren't really networks like this, like the Children in Nature Network or like NAAA for funders to go to, and so there hasn't been much of a collective voice in the past. And so what we're really looking to do is get the funders that care about this issue to collaborate, to come together, to expand our partnerships, like Tom said, and ultimately to draw more resources to this field. We're also trying to create some tools that will be helpful for folks in the field. And so one of the things that I tell people, having worked for 4 foundations, the fact that the children in nature field and the environmental ed field actually touch upon a whole bunch of benefits, right? So the work that you guys do and support, it makes kids healthier, happier, it gives them more play, it makes them smarter, it engages them in their community. So that's awesome that there are so many benefits, but for most funders, that's actually bad because they want you to fit into a very specific area. And so one of the things we're really working on is how to communicate the value of something that really does have multiple benefits. And part of the reason I was excited to work on developing this panel with Sarah and Juan is that we really wanted to challenge the group as well as the folks here to think about what metrics would make this field more compelling to folks that care about one of those multiple outcomes, but not necessarily all of them.
Thank you, Angie. And that's a perfect segue to this next question. As many of us here in this room have written a proposal, put it in front of people, we come across some of the difficulties, and a couple of things that I've heard here thrown out is that theory of change, how to communicate that, as well as some of the research. So I'll point to you, Tali, and talking about some of the difficulties in funding the Children in Nature Network and what some of those opportunities could be.
Yeah, so I think I started down that road a little bit when I mentioned that we really started to refine the organizations and the projects that we're supporting, kind of hit upon that age range of teenage to mid-20s. And part of the reason we've been focusing on that is because we think people make a lot of their long-term decisions or lifelong decisions on sort of what brand of outdoor gear they might wear, or what those activities are that are going to sustain them emotionally and mentally throughout their lifetimes. And in addition to, one of the things that we've run up against is we're really interested in programs that are scalable. And so we found when we were really starting to try and refine and think about that age range, one of the difficulties we found in funding in this sector is that there are often really great programs, as Angie mentioned, but they might just be applicable to one community and not really able to scale. And so that's something that we've really been trying to look for great examples of scalable programs to help educate and inform other grantees. And so one that if you're not familiar with, I encourage you to find out more about is the YMCA's Bold and Gold initiative. It started back in 2002 in Seattle, and so we've been supporting them from the beginning. And in 2012, they started to scale, and so now they're last year they were in 6 cities, and their goal is to be in 30 cities by the end of 2017. And it's quite clever. Gold stands for Boys Outdoor Leadership Development, and gold is Girls Outdoor Leadership Development. And it's really about engaging teenagers, so 13 to 20-year-olds, and teaching them leadership development skills by going through wilderness experiences. So, and wilderness can be defined in many different ways based on which part of the country you live in. So it's a great program that's very scalable. And so that's something that we've really started to focus on.
Thanks, Holly. And one of the things that I mentioned about REI is they are successfully making outdoor sexy. Nice, the fluffing, nice and fluffy is good, but
You gotta look good when you're doing your outdoor activities.
If you've written a proposal, you know that one of the questions we often get back is what kind of metrics are you looking for as a funder? And how do you measure success, and what does that look like? I know that one of the most robust and supportive conversations that we've had there is with Ellen and Kellogg Foundation in helping us really figure out what those metrics are that we can get best, and what does success look like for us. So, Ellen, would you care to talk about those?
Yeah, I'll talk sort of more in general than Kellogg specifically, because I've spent most of my career in nonprofit looking for funding. And so I feel that that's a real advantage now that I'm in, a funder position. I mean, for Kellogg Foundation, at the end of the day, one of the metrics is how is this work going to impact vulnerable children 0 to 8? Because we're a children's foundation, and that population of 0 to 8 and vulnerability because of the racial equity lens is what's most important to us. But the broader point is, knowing that funder that you're reaching out to. And what I like to say, although I doubt our communications department would agree with this, is that in a sense, in your position, it's really in the spend. I mean, I'm not suggesting that people should mission creep or say they're going to do something that they don't do or don't know how to do, don't have the expertise or the interest to do. But really thinking about who is this funder and what are they looking, what do they do? And if you think there is a way to show how the work that you're proposing fits, then spend the time thinking about how you demonstrate that, and also look at what are those priorities of the foundation, so that you can talk about how the metrics, the outcomes from your work fit their funding priorities. And I certainly recognize that that's easier said than done, but it does surprise me how often folks will contact me or come up to me at a meeting or at a conference and suggest something that is just absolutely not anywhere a fit with what's coming. And that's not a good use of your time. It's certainly not a good use of time, drafting a proposal, right? I mean, not that many nonprofits have grant writing staff. And so usually it's program staff taking time away from the really important program work to try to pitch to a funder. And so you don't want to do that in a wasteful way.
Thank you, Ellen. So with the question here that I think everybody wants to hear, the money question. What's some of your advice as funders for those tips and tricks, those do's and don'ts? And I'll get the entire panel to chime in on this. I'm sure that everybody wants to hear from you. So we'll start over at the far end this time with Angie. What's your advice for some grant seekers out there? The best way to put a proposal in front of somebody that wants to connect children, nature, and families.
So a couple of folks have touched upon this, but it is, I would say, things are definitely frame your language so they're not just the foundation, and make sure you're identifying funders that actually are a fit. But for me, the first thing I look for every time I read a proposal is, do I see a logical flow? So do I see a theory of change? I know people hate that word, but do I see a logical flow of what these folks are proposing to do, who they're serving, what outcomes they're expecting to see, and how they're actually assessing the achievement of those outcomes. And very few proposals actually make it all the way through that flow on the first try. And so one of the pieces of, I used to do development, also like Ellen, and I do think being on the fundraising side of the table is helpful for being on the grant making side. And one of the things that I was taught when I first started writing grants was to give them to my mom and have her read them. And my mom, she lives in China, she doesn't understand the nonprofit sector, and it's really helpful to give things to someone that really has no idea what you're talking about and see if they're convinced by it.
Well, this certainly is not an area of my expertise. However, I will say that in the side of things where we're asked to partner with people on grants, what we look for is we look for it specifically being related to what our mission and values are, which is building communities through play, and how does this play into that? And then in addition to that, what we do when we're trying to partner with different organizations is to really know how much that organization cares and how committed they are to not just something quickly and then walk away from it. We want to know that we have long-term commitment going forward, so that when we're making an investment, that it's something we know is ideally it's going to become a best practice that can be rolled out into communities all across the country. That's what we're really interested in partnering with.
Next,
Yeah, I have a couple. I see a trend here. I also came from the nonprofit sector, so I understand the other side of the table as well. I'd say at REI, some of our favorite grantees are those that appreciate the dynamics of any sort of proposal or project that you're working on and try to, as we say, layer it up. So that's really, sharing with us sort of that grassroots component or the local component, thinking about what a state level implication is, and then also what that looks like at the national level, and really showing us how you're going to work with elected officials, educators, your local civic organizations, and really showing us that you do have a community of support behind your idea and that you have a political sophistication to execute. Obviously, politics is often a bad word. Coming from 8 years in DC, I fully appreciate that. But I'd say that if your organization does have a level of political sophistication, you should definitely share that. As we start to look at limited resources on public lands, both at the state level for state parks, but also at the national level, there's a growing demand to get the government to help support and fully fund some of those areas so that all of our work is made easier, especially in education. I think we can all agree. And so if you have those skill sets, I encourage you to use them. If you don't, you should go to the panel today. I think it's in the next session I think it's called Place Matters, and Policy Does Too. And then lastly, I think one of the most important things that I've learned on both sides is try to avoid tunnel vision. I think we all have it sometimes, and when you're just so passionate about your program, you often miss the opportunity to do something fabulous because you're stuck in a bubble. And I mean that in the way of sometimes we think we know exactly how it needs to get done. And I encourage you to keep an open mind and try to stop every once in a while and look around you. I worked for Audubon for a number of years. And so obviously my demographic was the typical older white, aging American that's into birding. But the young hip kids are doing it too. And so through that though, I was so focused on the conservation lens that it took me a minute to realize that I should actually be talking to the hook and bullet crowd, and soon learned to talk to Ducks Unlimited. And it was through that partnership and literally saying you have to save them to shoot them, right? And really ingraining in that sort of, Teddy Roosevelt sort of conservation ethic to help move our program. And that wouldn't have happened if we would have kept our tunnel vision. So I encourage you to think outside your own box.
These are really good tips. I just made a few notes, a few others. I mean, one is we realistic about what you say you're gonna be able to do, with the time and with the money. Because, you know, you may be able to get an initial grant from someone based on, you know, some grandiose plan, but if it doesn't work out because you've overpromised, then, you know, that may not really work out for you in terms of both the future with that grant maker, but also with others, because funders talk to each other. It's part of the due diligence process. And so it's much better to sort of, you know, be realistic in what you're gonna do and do a bang up job, in fact, exceed that, if you can, than to promise the moon and not be able to get there. The second thing is, you know, most funders who have websites have descriptions of prior grants they've made. And so sometimes it's a good idea to look at those to get a sense of both the breadth as well as the budget that a funder may be willing to entertain. Most funders do not want to be sole funder. And sometimes you need to be creative in thinking about how you explain why you're only seeking, you know, X's funding. The reality is you're probably at least offering some in-kind support, and that sometimes is what you have to list as being other funding. But I don't know any foundation that really wants to think that they're your sole, you know, bread and butter. Because unfortunately, foundations are very finicky, and I'm sure you've all seen that. No matter what they're doing and how much they're into it, in a few years, I guarantee it's going to be somewhere else. It's just the way it is. And so showing that you have not only other funder partnerships, but other partnerships in general to get the work done is really, really important. Lastly, I want to mention this. It's really bad form to approach more than one person in a foundation. I mean, you can talk to more than one, but if you, like, you know, send an application or even a concept paper to one and they say, not a good fit, it's a really bad idea then to get somebody else up to the foundation. That kind of stuff tends to get around and it just doesn't put you in the best light for the next time.
Thank you.
I've got mine. I think y'all have done an excellent job at, with some of the do's and don'ts, but I'd like to talk about this from the perspective of grants to teachers for hands-on environmental projects or project-based learning, inquiry learning. And we've been doing this for, as I said, for 24 years. And we, you know, teachers are totally under the gun. And sometimes it's disappointing, the grant requests that we get. They're not very, it's like the teachers are trying to have to recreate the wheel. They don't have a lot of time to do it. They don't know what the best practices are, or if they're wanting, you know, money for equipment, they're paying the highest prices and it may not be the highest quality. And so we have tried to figure out, like for learning gardens, for instance, kind of repackage the learning gardens in a different way. We had funded about 750 around the country, and we went back and did an assessment 5 years ago and found that a lot of those gardens had gone fallow because they were tied to one teacher or a set of parents that aged out. So the gardens weren't enculturated. They were after-school activities. And so we decided, the board decided that we didn't really want to make any more grants for gardens that were going to go fallow in a couple of years. And I know a lot of you are all about gardens in this room, but we decided to address barriers. So the barriers to longevity by coming up with a model program, and we call it Project Learning Gardens. So we curated and helped develop and fill in the gaps on curricula that was standards-based, where teachers could actually teach all the core subjects in the context of the garden and other subjects, history and social studies and health and nutrition. And then we also, the developed the teacher kit, so everything that the teacher needed to teach those subjects in the context of the garden they would have. We did teacher trainings. We've trained about 800 teachers so far and gotten very high remarks on our training. You know, teachers are not going to unpack those kits with the kids in the room. They have to do it beforehand. They have to be comfortable if they're going to use them. Summer garden management was a huge barrier. The maintenance guys at schools hated them because in the high productive season, it's attracting rodents and it's a real eyesore. And a lot of times teachers would come back and find that their gardens have been not only mowed but paid over, so they weren't likely to come back. But we managed to hire, raise some money and hire young urban certified growers and gave them their first jobs. So we managed 60 school gardens last year, and out of those 60 school gardens during the high peak growing season, we were able to donate 4,000 servings of vegetables to the emergency food care organizations, which is not insignificant. And then we also provide mobile kitchen carts. So when the kids are growing in the garden, actually they can do cooking demos and tastings with age-appropriate recipes in the classroom, which is not the junk that they're getting in the cafeteria, basically, that they've already developed a taste for. We took some executives from Kaiser Permanente on a site visit, which I highly recommend as a do. Take your, potential funders or your sponsors, especially if you want to scale up their support. Take them on site visits. And when these kids, it was a second grade class, half of them were African American, half of them were Latino, and high free and reduced lunch program student population. They harvested, okay, the lettuces are easy, right? Spinach is easy, tomatoes are easy, cucumbers are easy, but they went for the jalapenos and the radishes. And they picked them all, they cut up this big salad, it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the adults were all starving, so we were hoping that they didn't go for the salad too well. Well, they all had a whole bowl of salad and then went back for seconds, right? And there wasn't a bite left, no jalapenos, no radishes. My kids would no more touch those vegetables. Anyway, I'm just saying that we tried to make it easy for teachers. We actually have signed with school districts, Atlanta Public Schools have signed on with us to do all of their learning gardens, 5 districts in Atlanta, which is 525 gardens. We've got 164 in the ground with all the overlays. We have an e-commerce site. Go to Project Learning Garden at Captain Planet Foundation. We've open sourced all the curricula, so if you have a garden and you want to enculturate them, go ahead. We've got the e-commerce site where we've got the kits and the mobile kitchen carts that you can have for your schools. And then we also we're getting ready to launch in June. We've got 4 eco-STEM resource kits, one on water, one on pollinators, one on renewable energy, one on soil and waste management. And basically we're partnering with Donors Choose, and Donors Choose is a platform for crowdfunding. And Captain Planet, so any teacher, educator in this room that wants one of those kits, which are standards-based, they have tools, they have great environmental stewardship projects, can have a kit of their own. And we'd just like for you to go online and apply, just in case I don't get the microphone again, not that I want it, but I wanted to make sure I got all of this out. And with all of our grants that we send out a media kit. Media is really important. Make sure that you're letting your local papers know what you're doing, because then you'll get community and business leaders buy-in, which is going to help fund your programs sustainably going on into the future. Thank you.
Okay, tough act to follow. And it's also tough to be last on the question around do's and don'ts. So I think the only thing that I would add is just the notion of being honest. At the Foundation for Youth Investment, we are actually working on our own set of metrics and our own theory of change. And what we are really committed to is not being an additional burden on our grantees. So when we ask in our application process, do you have an evaluation tool? And if so, are you willing to share it? It's not a secret. What we would really love to do is to build our evaluation tool off of yours. We're not here to rewrite your mission. Many of you are working towards an outcome that your board, or your founder, or your leadership has already defined. So if you're looking to engage young people with the outdoors towards a leadership outcome, or a resilience factor, or an educational outcome, fantastic. Let us know that, so when we start to build our metrics, we're actually asking questions that you're already asking yourselves. The other piece is for us around cultural relevancy. We asked the question around the cultural competency of an organization, and we described what that meant, actually had sort of a fill-in-the-blank type of questions. And in many organizations just skip the question. They just chose not to answer it. And so we had no idea what that meant. Did they feel that they were so confident that they didn't have to answer it? So of course we assumed the opposite. And they were shocked when they learned that they didn't get any points towards that question. The invitation is to pick up the phone and call us, ask if you've got questions around the application. The Foundation for Youth Investment, compared to the folks here on the table, is relatively small. We do a minimum of $500,000 of grant making a year. So we really look to our grantees as partners. We are nothing without you. The last thing we want is at the end of a year or end of a grant cycle, people have actually called us and said, well, we had money to take kids snowshoeing and it didn't snow, so we're gonna have to send you the money back. Like, that's the worst thing you could do. You know, so I'm saying, what about a bike ride? What about a hike? And we offer general operating dollars. I will tell you that if there's an organization that does not need general operating dollars, you should probably rethink the notion of being a nonprofit. But be honest and have conversations with the foundation that is looking to support you. We have reached out to you and engaged with you because we believe in your mission. We believe in what you're trying to do. We want to support the idea of growth. We want to support something innovative. And with that also comes the possibility of failure or no snow. That's okay. Just continue to have conversations with us. And the site visits are a wonderful idea. It's the dog and pony show that makes us all really uncomfortable. Like many of the folks on the table here, I too have been in the nonprofit and the government sector. And the best funding that we received was when I was able to be honest, when I was able to say, no, I totally thought the vote was going to go this way. And we had folks show up at the community meeting that have never been there before and actually really delayed the conversation. That gave the funder confidence that we were still working towards the outcome and that I wasn't ignoring their phone calls. So in addition to everything else that everyone's saying, I would strongly recommend that you think of us as partners and think of us as folks that are your champion. We are nothing without the work and the wonderful outcomes that you all are doing.
Great, thank you, Kim. So I'm gonna recap real quick so you guys can Twitter these things out. Communicate your theory of change. Get your mom engaged. If your mom can understand it, anyone can understand it. Collective impact, look at partnership and how that matters. Don't avoid tunnel vision. Do not think of yourself as the sole answer to an equation. Be realistic about your time and money. Funders do not want to be the sole funder. If you do, you have to have a good answer to that. Look at big barriers to longevity and how that matters. And always get a funder to come and do a site visit. And then honesty and ask if you have questions. I think that's some great do's and don'ts to send you off to the next panel sessions here. Please go directly to your panel. Join me in thanking the panel here.